in progress. Wendy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Arlena, for having me. So good to see you.
I know, so good to see you too. You were on my podcast when was it your first book or just your latest book?
My first debut book.
Mother Load. I just thought it was such a clever title because I had like a hamper, a laundry hamper, basket, whatever, on the front. And you told some funny ass stories. I'm not going to lie. I will never forget that line. I think you shot somebody and you're like, just wing the bitch. Yeah. I was like, oh my God, Wendy's my spirit animal. We're gonna be friends forever. So funny.
Let me just give a little background information.
Yeah,
because that sounds like they're about to hear from a very crazy woman, which she was back in the early 90s. As she was in a Wendy, that being me, was in a drug-induced psychosis from doing meth and not sleeping for 2 weeks, and found out her husband was cheating on her. So, I couldn't have that.
So you was crazy.
I was crazy. Certifiably.
Listen, I don't blame you. There's that. I'm Team Wendy, so there's that. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, your first book, Mother Load, did really well. It's part of the Quit Lit landscape literature now. So happy that you're back and you've written another book. It's so amazing. Another book, Incorrigible. Does it have like a little subtitle to it?
Yes. What is the Incorrigible? Let me see.
I think you're going to give me a definition too.
Well, let me give you the definition.
Okay.
I was labeled incorrigible as a teenager, and the definition of incorrigible is not able to be corrected, improved, or reformed. So that is the label, they put on me when I was a teenager, and they still put on kids that are going into the juvenile justice system. It's Incorrigible is a coming of age memoir of a loss, addiction, and incarceration.
Wow. I mean, that's labeling you as hopeless.
Hopeless.
What did that do to you as a teen? We're talking teenager. How old were you?
I was about, I think, 14 or 15.
Oh, young.
And I was like plucked from my lifestyle, which is somewhat a privilege in Santa Monica, plucked out of there and had to learn how to navigate the criminal justice system of probation officers, juvenile hall, foster homes, mental institutions. One of the same mental institutions my mother had frequented. Wow. And if I could, like, just in timeline, Mother Load was something that was just needed to come out of me. I had to get it done. But if I had a choice, I would have written, if I would have known I was going to be writing other books, I would have done Incorrigible, because it's a prequel to Mother Load. Yeah. Really.
Do you feel like Mother Load had to come out because as you were raising kids, just all the guilt and shame, was that most pressing for you?
It was burning. It was just burning in me to get out, and I didn't have a lot of plans, to become a writer, but I knew that I was supposed to write this book. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I'm on my third book now, which documents my 20s, which was it's crazy. It's crazy as well.
I cannot wait. The stories you must have.
Yeah, it's pretty, that they would label me something like beyond reform. And here I am, if I could go back to, those people and the people that are labeling kids that are dealing with trauma. I think that, we've progressed enough in society to change the language and to a trauma-informed, approach to adolescents that are going into the system, because they're coming from broken homes, they're coming from incest, from violence. And to say that about a kid and stamp them with that, you know, it's beyond me.
So wrong on so many levels. You know who
So
does trauma informed work is, especially in like, I want to say jails and stuff, is Dr. Stephanie Covington.
heard of her. I
Yeah, she's the one that wrote A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps like
Yeah,
25,
yeah, of
30 years ago.
course.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
super cool, but she does trauma informed, like I want to say legislation or policy. That's the word I was searching for, policy, trauma informed policy, because it does, when you talk about little kids that are coming out of these horrible situations that you mentioned, they're gonna act out. They're gonna be pissed with no tools to resolve that anger, and they're going to do stuff, right, and to label them and condemn them for the rest of their lives or whatever. I mean, beyond reform, that's insane.
I mean, I was running away. I was like running away. I was getting high too and drinking and taking pills, but
Yeah.
I was running away from a place where I didn't feel safe, and
Mm,
that's what kids do, or not all kids, but some kids just, they respond to the trauma differently. But I
right.
acted out the family rage and started running
Right.
and getting into trouble,
Yeah.
because I didn't know how to metabolize my emotions, my grief of having lost a mother at 7 years old to suicide, that I talk about in Motherload. Um, and as I was saying earlier, that Motherload was, something that I needed to get out. It was about my mother. And if Incorrigible is more about my father, it's about my father. And as I was saying, that writing this book, I wrote it during COVID. Uh, it really gave me insight to what he must have gone through as a father who lost his wife, had 4 kids he's a widower. He's got 4 kids to raise. It's the 50s, it's the 60s. And, it's a time where, trauma is not a word that people use. It's not even on someone's radar. Oh, they're kids, they'll get over it. So I did a deep dive into, what he must have felt like. And therefore, I tapped into more empathy and even more forgiveness for him. Because I feel like I did the work, I've done the work, and gotten, I have forgiveness for both my mother and father. But it's surprising you can go even deeper, you know, into the realm of healing, and I think when we get sober and we get into recovery, that's what starts happening as we tap into this other realm, because like I often say is like when I first got sober, the only language I spoke was victimese, you know, and it was like I was
Victimies.
victimese. I was like fluent in victimese. I
Girl,
was
I get that. Yeah.
mother's fault, my father's fault, my husband's fault, anybody else. And then, but owning this shit, and owning it in my writing and creative writing has been a deeper dive for me.
A deeper dive for you to metabolize all that pain from the past. You said a few words that really struck me. You used the words compassion, empathy, and forgiveness. And in my mind, those are all things that lead us to that place of peace. But before we get there, do you want to just kind of recap a little bit? Like I'll leave a link to your first episode where you kind of go into the deep dive of your recovery journey. But do you want to kind of go over a little bit about what your life was like and what led you to that label of incorrigible?
As a teen,
Yeah, well, you can pick it up wherever you want, but I'm just curious, like after your mother died, well, tell me a little bit about your mom, what happened, and then what happened after she died.
okay, so my mother was a paranoid schizophrenic and had psychotic breaks, a lot. And she was constantly trying to kill herself, or regularly trying to kill herself. And as kids, we'd often get in the way. you know, uh, and by that I mean, she might turn on the gas in the house, and we would be in the house, and the fire department would come. So in any case, it was the first 7 years of my life, the development stage that they say is when the kid is brain, the architecture of the brain is being constructed. I was,
Default mode network.
yes, fight, flight, freeze, or fold
Mhm.
constantly, cortisol pacing through my system. So she did kill herself when I was 7 years old. And my dad didn't tell me because, like I said, it was that was the time. You didn't tell kids; they're resilient; they'll get over it. And I found out later that she killed herself, and I was angry. I was really angry. I was angry for him lying. I was angry for the betrayal. I lost because he disconnected from all of her relatives, and I felt like he deprived me of my relationship with my cousins on my mother's side. He just cut us off and kind of went into this self-imposed exile. In any case, I was angry. I started to act out. I said I'd never, ever, ever be like my mother. And like, I don't know about you, but saying never is like giving the universe the exact coordinates to where you're going to later
I'm
land.
never gonna be rich. Let's see
Yeah,
what
I'm never
happens.
going to be rich. I'm never, yeah, we should just
Can we
never at
use
all.
that? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
let's do
Yeah.
that. No, that's good.
Okay.
Um,
So you were
so
angry because you were lied to. You were lied to.
I was lied to, and as a kid, I felt betrayed.
How old were
So,
you when you found out?
about 13, right before,
Oh, rough age.
yeah, yeah.
Found out. Okay.
I found out. This is in the book Incorrigible. I found out from my housekeeper. My dad had a housekeeper who was
She
turned into
told
his
you.
drinking buddy. She told me. She goes, I think you have a right to know the truth. And she goes, I want you to know that your mother killed herself. And so I just go, what? What? You know, and she had turned into my father's drinking buddy. And so, um, she was probably tipsy, when she told us. He,
Yeah.
and so I confronted him. And of course, he said, you were too young to know, blah, blah, blah. But I was still pissed off, and
Hmm.
never having any of the tools, or never addressing the loss and the grief of my mother. I should say
Mm.
that I never went to her funeral. Like, that is a place where, you get to grieve, or, you get a better understanding of what death is. Not to say that a 7-year-old can even find a language to describe what it feels like to lose a mother, and like, now how do I navigate the world? So all of that led up to me either, well, drinking, finding alcohol, a way for me to not care.
Mhm.
It was a way for me to not be self-conscious. It was a way
Oh
for
yeah.
me to operate in the world, a world where I didn't want to be, and oh, I can do this. I can do this if I'm high. This works.
Mm.
you know so I found alcohol, and started running away, started just like my GPS. Once I drink, I lose all connection with my GPS, or my internal guidance system.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that started happening, and getting arrested with the police.
For
uh
what?
yeah, and then to the point where finally, my dad, we went to court in the juvenile system, and he told the judge, I don't know what to do with her anymore. I can't control her. And I mean, that's true. I was out of control. Um, but that's when they labeled me incorrigible and sent me to juvenile hall.
What did you get arrested for?
That time it was runaway.
Oh, you can get a. Oh, I didn't know you could get arrested for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got arrested for running away and they just labeled you incorrigible and then put you in juvenile hall.
Well, when I ran away, I mean, I can, clarify this. When I ran away, I did get picked up by some guys. Me and my girlfriend got picked up from some guys, and they were selling drugs out in the valley. So we didn't know they were big drug
Oh,
dealers.
oh my
So
God.
I wasn't charged with drugs. I was only charged with runaway, but we were in a kind
Oh,
of precarious situation with guys that were dealing drugs. And so when the doors got kicked down, um, me and Tara, I don't know, I might have changed her name in the book, but we were hauled off for being runaways. We weren't charged because
okay.
we didn't know. So from there I went to court, and because my dad threw his hands up with me and didn't know what to do, uh, they stamped that incorrigible on me. And actually, I didn't tell you this. The book cover of Incorrigible is the first page of my rap sheet.
Oh, brilliant. You're so
Yeah,
clever.
isn't
I,
that great?
those of you on the listening on the podcast will not see the devilish glint in Wendy's eye. It's so funny. Oh my God, that's brilliant. The rap sheet. You had a rap sheet at, what was that, 14?
14. Yeah, it's only
Wow.
page 1. Book 3 will be page 2, 3, 4.
You got a lot of stories. You got to break it off in pieces so that we can digest.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you have to digest it. I mean, it's so incredible that to be on this side of it, sharing this story with this perspective.
Oh my goodness, because you deal with a lot of teens now, right?
I deal with teens. I work at an adolescent treatment for mental health,
Mental
and
health.
you know, I talk to the parents that are just dealing with these kids that are struggling, cutting themselves, suicide
Mm.
attempts, suicide ideation, trauma, well, gender dysmorphia and trans,
Is that a
all
is that a huge thing now?
huge, huge, a lot of that. And so so I'm talking to parents trying to get them help, and when they call me with their kids that have cut themselves, I mean, what if I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, your kid sounds incorrigible," it's like that would not happen today. I
Mhm.
mean, it happens in the juvenile justice system, but it doesn't happen in trauma informed care.
Right.
And we offer trauma informed care. And so it's like, I can see how my experience can help somebody else,
Yeah.
which gives deep meaning to um, not only this book, because in ways, when I was writing it during COVID, I was thinking of the kids. I was thinking of the kids that we are helping, at Polaris. And, it's just because I've been the teen, I've been the mother with the teen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You have
I've,
two boys?
I have 2 boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So
remember that because I have two boys.
yeah, yeah. And I've been on both sides. So, and during COVID, I mean, we've been dealing like with I think a trauma with this whole uncertainty and like what's going to happen. And the kids,
Gosh, the isolation alone.
isolation with their parents, who a lot of them don't get along with anyway. And then they're like, everything stops and you're locked in a house, and all those buttons are being pushed. It's like, it's no wonder there were so many calls coming in, still a lot of calls coming in, um, as kids are coming out to go back to school. They're activated and they're afraid, and so it's yeah, it's really personal, my writing. I mean, obviously it's about my life, but it's
Mhm.
personal in the fact that I wanted to use my life as a tool to help other people. you know
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's I mean, why did I go through all of that if I don't, if I, it's, if I don't use it to help somebody else, then it's like, you know,
It
what's the
was
point?
all for naught. Yeah. And that's, that's really the focus of this podcast is people tell their recovery stories. And then we find out that we are more alike than different. And, that because we're so much alike, that if I can do it, you can do it type of thing too. So
Exactly.
can we touch a little bit on your recovery story? You sort of alluded that you were drinking at this young age, and that was like a solution for you. And then I know that it escalated for you. Maybe kind of touch on sort of the places that it took you, and then what happened to you that you decided to get sober.
So, um, yeah, it did escalate. After alcohol, I found drugs. I found, you know, a variety of drugs. I got hooked up with a guy, had two kids at some point, trying to function in the world. But again, like I said, I couldn't metabolize my feelings. I couldn't navigate the world. And, you know, uh, it's a progressive disease or progressive condition. I don't care what you call it, but it progressed with me until the point of I started doing methamphetamine. You know, let me just say that I did end up going to juvenile halls and jails, and I went to state prison and uh, just couldn't stay out of trouble. And then during the early 90s, when I started doing methamphetamine, I had that psychotic break where I, like I already said, shot the other woman, winged her, and ended up in the county jail. And that's really where the story of recovery starts, right there.
Mhm.
But what was different this time, it was like, um, one more time I'm like living the same story over and over again. And I've been blaming everybody else for my life. But at this point, I had the realization that I was the common denominator in
Ooh.
the story. I'm the common denominator. It's like I can keep continuing to blame everybody, and I did for a while. But I am the common denominator. And if I really, if I wanted to pay him back, because he moved the other woman into my bed when I went to jail, as you know.
Ouch.
Yeah. And so I would, was angry and I wanted to pay him back. And I had this realization, the best way to pay him back would be to be a success. But what is success anyway? Was it uh, zeros on my bank account? Was it a house? Was it another man? What what the hell is it? And all I knew, the only answer I came up with is I'd have to be sober to find out what success is.
Ah, yeah.
That I knew intuitively that I wouldn't be able to be successful unless I got sober. So that was my dream in the county jail, was to get sober. I went to, when I got out of county jail after a year, I went to a, uh, a women and children's place. And my older son is in juvenile hall. So he's walking in my footsteps the same way I walked in my mother's footsteps. And then I get my younger son, Ricky, and we stay at this transitional living. Okay, so I didn't fully think, I didn't think I could get sober or stay sober. I didn't think it could happen for me. I thought that it was something that happened to other people, and I'm glad that you're able to do it, but you don't understand where I've been. You don't know what I've done. And I had a lot of shame,
Mm,
as many of us do,
mhm.
that I couldn't, tell anybody what I had done. And as a result, I did drink after I got out. But if you recall, in the mother lode, on Mother's Day, a kid is shot in a drive-by in front of the transitional living on 11th and Pico, which is usually a busy, it was like a Sunday night late, and he's laying in the intersection. And I went to this kid that was dying. He took 4 gunshots, uh, and this was somebody's child laying in the intersection on Mother's Day. And I was there for him in a way that I'd never been there for anybody in my life. Usually I was a type that, I'd always want something but I didn't want anything from that kid. I only wanted him to live. Well, he didn't live. He didn't live. The police came, the paramedics came. I found out the next day he died. But that night I had a spiritual experience while I was up in my place, and I was like freaking out about what had happened. And my son Ricky was asleep, and I felt a presence come into the room. And this presence, like I went from one instant feeling like total anxiety to the next instant feeling like absolute peace, like everything is all right. I mean, it was a white light variety spiritual experience. And it transformed me, not instantly there, but in hindsight, it was the key to changing my life. It changed my life to the point where I thought, well, was that God, that light, or was that the boy that came to me? I thought maybe it was the boy's spirit came to thank me for being there with him as he was dying, as he was transitioning. For a long time, I wanted to find his mother and tell him I was there. Your son wasn't alone, but I never did. But that's when I got serious about recovery and got, let's say, out of the bleachers and onto the playing field and started participating in my recovery. And in that, what that means is I built up a community around me. I started getting involved. I went back to the juvenile halls that I had been in as a kid. I talked to those girls. I saw how my experience was useful to them and how they related. And then it was also for me, like going to Sylmar Juvenile Hall where I'd been and talking to those girls was almost like reaching through a portal in time to the girl that I abandoned when I was 13, when I was 14. And that's what I think recovery is. For me, recovery is integrating all of those aspects of all those pieces of myself that I left, abandoned every time I took a drink, every time I ran away. It's like every time I gave myself away and didn't say no to somebody I didn't want to be with. It was like, and I go into some of that in Incorrigible. It's like not having the boundaries, not having the self-love or the self-worth to say no to a man. So that my recovery has been about, one, integrating the parts of me that I abandoned, and two is healing the relationship with my sons. It's like, that's what Mother Lode was about. It's like, how do you heal a relationship with your kids? I mean, how do you, once you lose your mind, how do you get it back? And are you restored to sanity? And, it was, for me, it was like, it meant everything to me to show up for my kids and make a living amends to them by being present despite what was coming down the pike. Because like I said, I've had challenges with my own boys, and one was in juvenile hall. Ricky started acting out, and just being that kind of anchor for them and being present, being sober, a sober mom who didn't like go, oh man, this would be so much easier if I had something to drink. you know I just stayed present, and as a result of that staying present, I was able to heal the relationships with my boys, and I'm very close to both Ricky and Jerry today. I was able to make amends to my ex-husband. uh,
Big.
it's huge, huge. And I mean, that's like not who I was when I was in the county jail. And the in the county jail, I think that at that time my bandwidth was so narrow of life experience. Like, if I never could have imagined that, like, if a cellmate would have said, Wendy, hang in there. One day you're going to write a book. No, no, no. You're going to write 2 books, maybe 3 books. I would have never believed it. If they would have told me you're going to travel, like I've traveled. I just went to Hawaii recently. I swam with dolphins again. It
Yay.
was wild dolphins and it was amazing. I couldn't see my life like that. But that realization that I had, that, like, what does success mean? It means sobriety. It means sobriety. It means that is my foundation. That is my foundation. Being sober, being present, addressing whatever comes down the pike, and sometimes I don't like it, sometimes I get activated, like COVID, when it first hit, all of that fight, flight, freeze stuff was activated for me because of the uncertainty, you know. But the difference between now and back then is that I recognize it. I go, oh, I'm activated. This is pushing my button. What do I do? What do I do when I'm activated? Well, I have a meditation practice that I do daily. I pray, I do that daily, sometimes all day long. I write. Writing for me is one of the most therapeutic tools that I wish everybody could tap into. I also do writing groups for different treatment centers. And writing, it's also gives me a portal to my past. It also is about resurrecting my mother and father who have passed. It's resurrecting their spirits. And it's like I said, like a deep dive at what was happening and how they felt. Like, I have to be in my father's skin. I have to be in his mind to try to empathize and see where he was coming from, and that takes me back. So I'm resurrecting their spirits when I write, and I find great therapeutic value in that.
I mean, the writing process is so magical. I had a friend say that there's a BS filter in your elbow, and when you write, the truth comes out.
It's true.
I
It is
know.
so true, because you're not censoring yourself. It's
Right.
just like something happens when you take pen to paper.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't know what I think until I write. It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
because we can be so self-deceived. I have so many questions to ask you. It's kind of up in my world right now. There's a lot of women that I've been working with, that struggle with things like anger. Maybe it's anger because of self-abandonment. Like, you talked a lot about self-abandonment and boundaries and things like that. And for me, it's like that self-betrayal. We're taught so young, especially the women. I guess the men too, but I ain't a man, so
Right.
I think I see everything through the lens of what it was
Right.
like to be a woman, right? And I see these women that are conditioned to, be nice girls, don't get angry, stuff that shit, nobody wants to see you're ugly, be cute, be pretty, be sweet, make everybody else feel nice. And the anger as a result of that, especially later on in life. I'm a middle-aged woman. I deal with a lot of other middle-aged women who are just like so detached from their anger. So when you talk about, self-abandonment and self-betrayal, you talked a little about boundaries too, because that seems like a logical next step, right? First, we get in touch with the anger, and then you keep using the word metabolizing. We need to metabolize that. How were you able to do that later? I know you do like recover, 12-step stuff, but like, what was that experience like for you to metabolize that anger and stop doing the self-betrayal?
Well, I'll go back to when I was in jail, when my husband moved the other woman into my bed.
Sounds so
Okay,
bad. Oh my God.
so bad. I mean, it's like crazy. But I was, I had nothing. I had no drugs to take the edge off. So I didn't know it then. I think I found a way. I did poison pen letters to him.
Ooh, what's
Oh,
that?
well, I just wrote him letters. I didn't have a stamp, to send it to him, thank God. But I wrote letters to him, just like angry, raging
Mm,
letters, and so it's a tool I use even today, is writing poison pen letters and giving
poison pen.
people permission to write it down, and don't censor yourself. Just let it rip on paper, and then burn it or shred it or flush it. But like, I wrote so many poison pen letters in jail. So that was my first. I didn't know then that I was going to find this therapeutic tool.
Mhm.
Um, and so, and other ways that I um, try to get clients to get in touch with, things that are going on is like, uh, if they are angry, what is the anger saying to them? Like, take me inside your head, or I'll use it with resistance. If you are resistant to living your best life, tell me what the resistance is saying to you. So we start a conversation, because it's then we're like, what you resist persists. So
Yep.
we're getting intimate with the anger. We're
Mhm.
going there. Let's just go there. Let's get intimate with anger. What does it want you to do? What does it want you to say? What does it want from you? What is it physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritual? You write that down. Now, the ideal Wendy, the Wendy that isn't angry, the one the way I'd like to show up in my life, has a conversation with that, writes back to that person. It writes back to the anger, you know, and has a conversation. So the Wendy now, who I am now, is talking to the rage in me that I've been resisting. So
Mm.
like, let's just let it out. Let's just like get to know it. Let's get an intimate relationship with my anger, and allow it, because it's like, I mean, we hear things that it's not okay to be angry, and that, like, that is not giving us permission. Like, okay, it's not healthy for me to wallow in anger, but
Right.
if I need to get in touch with it, I'm not going to do a spiritual bypass by jumping over the anger.
Yes, girl. Yes. No
So I
spiritual bypassing.
have to go into the anger first,
Mhm.
acknowledge, anger is not a good space for me to be in. Yeah, okay, but it doesn't. I don't transcend humanity, you know.
Right.
So let's talk about what's really going on. And I was, as a drug and alcohol counselor, as somebody, I learned, and as a writer, I learned to talk about what's really going on. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because part of my recovery was working in detox, was working at prestigious residential treatment. Um, so I had a lot of experience with having to confront the disease, or relapse and all of that. So I learned to be, a straight shooter, you know, and be honest,
Be
because,
honest.
yeah, I mean, yeah. And writing helps me be honest.
Yeah, and because it's safe and it's private, and for me, it like releases that blanket of denial. If we have denial, if we're working with people that are wrestling with denial, it's because they're in so much pain, right? And that doesn't deserve condemnation or judgment. It deserves empathy, right?
Yeah,
That denial is there to protect you. And
right.
until I find that, and I wonder if this is what you experience in your work with the teens, that the denial is not released until they feel safe enough to tell the truth.
Well, I think that with the teens, that everything in our facility is about making them feel safe.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, it's like everything, great thought, I mean, goes into finding the right people with the right patience, the right temperament, the
Mm,
right intention, if you will.
sure.
Uh, that uh, I haven't found that in every place that I've worked, but I am proud to say I've found it where I work now. Um,
Polaris, is it?
Polaris Teen Center, yeah. It's
Polaris.
like we're a small model so that um, everyone there, is, I mean, just as we screen everybody, all the kids that come in, because we're
Mm,
not about filling beds. If a kid is not a fit, we don't give them a bed. We suggest maybe you try this place, but we screen the staff as well.
mm,
And because we're in Los Angeles, we have a lot of really talented facilitators in their domain, whether it be somatic experiencing,
mhm.
in their domain, we can really hire people that bring something completely unique to the table. So as you can hear from the tone of what I'm saying is that um, at this point in my life cannot represent somebody that I don't admire the work and feel a deep pride, at what we do. So when I'm talking to a parent on the phone, or I'm talking to somebody that maybe is a referral source, I'm it's sincere. It's sincere. And so I can't fake it anymore. I just can't fake it.
I
This
can't,
is like I can't
too
go
old for
out.
that bullshit.
I can't sell
I
something
get
I don't
it.
believe in, and I
Yeah,
believe in what we're doing. We're helping people, kids. If I would have gotten the help I
I
needed
know.
when I was stamped incorrigible, like the kids are getting where I work, I mean, I may not have had these books to write. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I went there because I had to, but
Mm.
I think that a lot of kids don't have to go there. That there's more help available today.
Yeah, there's like that. I don't know who said it. I feel so bad for not knowing who all said all these amazing things, but it's like, we're pulling these people out of the river, but at some point we need to go upstream and find out where they're falling in,
Yeah,
right? And let's
it's so
stop it
true.
there. We need to
Yeah,
just end the suffer. There's so much suffering, and it's needless. It's needless suffering. So I'm so grateful that there are people like you. I told you before we started that I have a son. Both my boys have had struggles at different times. Like my older son, when he was in high school, was cutting and was like had suicidal depression. That was rough. That was a rough period, and for us as a family. And we were sober and had access to resources, but we were lost in that arena. And so we had some people that were like you that helped us through that. um, and then my younger son has had some issues too. And so I just am so grateful for the people who have that special sensitivity that you have. It's like a superpower. Thank God that you've dedicated your life to helping others in the way that you have. Because listen, as a mom, there's no other pain that gets me to my core than watching my son suffer. Oh, it makes me want to cry.
yeah. I mean, I nothing takes me down as when my kids are suffering. You know, So I remember that when a parent calls,
Yeah.
that this, and sometimes someone might sound out of their mind, but I remember what it feels like to have a son, or well, in my case, sons that are suffering. I was
Mhm.
out of my mind because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go
Yeah.
or who to turn to, you know. So that experience, my life experience, helps me. It helps me stay grounded. It helps
Yeah.
me be there for them.
And in all fairness, we are out of our minds by the time we call you. Thank God you're patient and understand.
I try. I try. I mean, it's
Listen, I hope you have good boundaries, but yeah,
no,
you
no,
know,
I do. I have good boundaries. I do have good boundaries, but I mean, but I have like conversations with myself. Remember, she's this mom's scared, and
oh,
it's my big,
scared.
yeah.
Yeah,
What wouldn't we do for our kids?
I know,
To
right?
save our kids.
Yeah, I will act the fool to
Yeah.
protect my children. That when the mama bear comes out,
Oh
I
man.
mean, I'm half Mexican. I will straight go chola.
Yeah.
I have made more than one teacher in elementary school cry. I'll just say that. Don't you hurt my baby. I'll come after
Serious.
you.
Serious.
Lord have mercy. Listen, I am so grateful for our time together. I learned so much. I wrote down so many things that you said. I'll put them all in the show notes. But yes, everybody must get your books. I feel like it should come in a 2-pack.
2-pack. It's going to soon be a 3-pack.
This will be a
But
3-pack. Yeah.
but don't wait for the 3.
Just get the support my girl Wendy and her work. I mean, listen, if a woman who is trying to help your babies survive, if you don't deserve to, who does? I don't know. I don't know. Let's all support my girl Wendy. You can buy your book at wendyadamson.com. I know that they can get both your books, Motherload and Incorrigible, on Amazon. And thank you for the work that you're doing at the Polaris Teen Center. You have earned your wings, my friend.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing here, just getting
Yes.
these interviews and talking to such diverse, interesting people and having a conversation that needs to be had.
It needs to be had. Man, did you hear that stat lately about how many OD? I think it was 81,000 people OD'd in a 12-month period. I think they ended the count sometime in May of 2021. A lot of people are suffering.
Scary,
Yeah,
scary.
it's really sad. But let's pull people out of the road. Let's keep them from falling in. Right.
That's right, girl.
These are important solutions that you talked about. The poison pen letter. Ooh, that's a good one.
It's really it helped me. Who
Yeah.
knew?
Who knew?
I
And I heard somebody gave me this other exercise about writing a letter from my inner child, like from my inner little girl. And I started writing and I was like, oh, damn, she's pissed.
Yeah. And you can do it with your left hand as well, is because it engages a
A
different part
different
of the
part of your
brain.
brain. Genius. You're a genius, Wendy. Well, listen, thank you so much. I'm going to send everybody to your website. I'll leave links to everything. Is there anything else is there any way people can get a hold of you or just go to your website, or are you on social media?
I'm on social media, Wendy Adamson on Facebook, and my Instagram is #2 Jedi, #2 Jedi. Please follow me there. I'm also having a book launch. I don't know if this will be out in time, but I'm having a book launch on let's see, I just want to go, August 25th, that is open to anyone that wants to go.
Where is it? In LA?
It's going to be virtual so that
Ooh.
anybody can go. It's like, and I'm going to be talking to Dr. Michelle Butler, who
Okay.
is it works at Polaris Teen Center. And we're going to be talking about the book and talking about adolescence and treatment. So it might be a timely, you know,
Yes.
I can send you the link.
Please do. As we record, today is the 12th. I was going to publish it next week. Maybe we can bump it up for you.
Well, I'll send you the link. It's going to be open
me
to
a link.
anybody. It's virtual, and it's gonna be fun, and it's going to be educational.
A lot of moms in recovery listen to my podcast, so
Oh,
I will.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you will get a good turnout. It'll be very helpful. All right. Well, yeah, shoot me the links. I'll include it in the show notes. And
Yay.
Wendy, thank you so much for joining me again. You are such a love. Thanks so much for all you do.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
We'll talk real soon.
All right. Bye.